Hello everyone, welcome to the GHPC developer stream, January 2021. I am Josh Basuito. I am the lead developer for the project. I am joined today by a couple of members of the team. I believe I have Kavi and Harry on.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
As usual, let us know if there are any audio issues right off the bat. Otherwise, we will get right into it. The big deal for today, we are updating the public demo of GHPC for the first time in almost a year and a half. Since August of 2019, we have been overhauling the game, starting from the ground up. We have completely replaced all of the core functionality, all of the models, other art assets. We have made a new design and direction for the game, and the Patreon supporters have been following along as we built that. But now we think it's time to replace the old demo and bring you something new. And we're very excited to show that off. So, I am going to start up a actual demo and let the game do the talking. In the meantime, as usual, this is a Q&A and dev stream combined, so if you have some good questions, put them in the chat. We will keep an eye on that, and we will answer them when we can.
Someone asking if someone's found the map in real life yet.
Someone has found the map in real life.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The 2-kilometer map is based on a specific location in Germany, and we have said before that if you tell us the exact coordinates on the Earth where that's centered, we will give you access to the next multiplayer test, which is a while out still, several months at least, but your name will be on the list. So far, one person has found it. It's not impossible. It's just very difficult. The second map, which I will show in a moment, is actually at a known location, which is Checkpoint Alpha, near the Fulda Gap. Anyway, let's just get right into it here. I'm going to start up a mission in the new demo and let the game talk for a minute. Just need a second for it to load. Good to see so many people here today. I know we've published information about this ahead of time. Okay.
Why does it take longer to load?
It takes longer to load because we have a huge map now compared to the other one. And this is an early demo, so, optimization comes after features. Alright, let's go to the game.
For size at least. But we have done some optimization as part of this patch. Big physics rewrite. People are liking the new sounds.
We just gotta shut up and let him listen for a bit.
This is the new map. It's not just a dark hill in the middle of nowhere. It's fairly big and nice looking. This is all running live, by the way. I pre-recorded nothing for this demo. What you see here is what you'll get. We have brand new models. The patrons are familiar with these because of the Patreon demo. The public build had all free assets, or things that we thought were free assets at the time. Those are no more. This is all brand new. Everything in the game is either created by us or commissioned specifically for the game. All of the coding is new, all of the art is new, and we're very excited for what we're adding soon as well. You sound like you're going to say something, Kavi.
I do sound like that. Plans for crew voices. A few
Yes.
people have asked that already.
Crew voices, I know in the old demo there were those voice lines, very simple, but they were there. We are going to add voice lines again, but we want to do them properly this time, so that involves studying crew training guidelines, making kind of flowcharts for how those commands go, and then we're going to actually get them more professionally recorded. So that's got some lead time on it. It's not ready yet. It will be coming
We'll
back.
eventually need good people to do voices, and consistently, I guess, right?
Yes.
If people want to actually put some effort into it, and like, I mean, it's going to have to be not sounding like the typical recording in a basement sort of thing.
Right.
What do you have against my basement?
Spent too long in there, man. I'm sick of it.
You know, it's basements where the work happens. Okay. You know, at least it's not poisonous anymore with that whatever radon gas. Anyway, so this, I suppose I'll show another mission. Get it loaded up here. Any good questions while I'm waiting for that?
Everyone wants to know about crew voices.
Crew voices, huh? That's the big thing. Don't worry, they will be coming.
Yeah. We want professional ones. We don't want Josh or myself trying to mess things up.
Yeah, I was the gunner previously for the voice recordings, and I did not sound enthusiastic. I was very casual.
Identified.
On the way.
We got a question coming up a fair bit about when the new demo's coming. It's at the end of the stream.
It is not at the end of the stream, it's shortly after. We have to we've verified the Patreon build, but the public build is technically a different build because we changed some messages and things and rebuilt it. So I have to actually get that checked to make sure it's all good. And then I would say within a couple hours of the stream, you can expect the public demo on itch to be updated. If you have the old version of the game installed with the itch launcher, it will probably try to auto update. Now this demo is so different from the other one, I don't know if it can properly auto update the game. So you may need to remove and reinstall the game. And by the way, I should mention, if you like the old demo and you want to keep it around for nostalgia or whatever, or you like specific missions, save a copy of that now because it's going away. This new one is going to be the new standard. Okay, let's show some other stuff here.
What else
Let us know
comes
if you want a question. Oh, sorry, Calvi.
Well, I was just gonna say, what else comes from going with this public demo update? Obviously, everything's gonna be brand new looking and everything, but what does that afford people who get in now versus like from the old stuff that we had?
What do you get from the new demo instead of the old
Yeah,
one?
yeah. So like patches, updates, that sort of thing.
Oh, so this new demo is going to be updated fairly frequently. Patrons will get updates as soon as there are things ready. As soon as bugs are fixed, as soon as features are in, they get everything. That's how we thank people for supporting us. The project is entirely funded by the community right now. Public demo players will not be left out. We will give them critical bug fixes, very important feature updates, probably less frequently, and excluding things. Like patrons will probably get new vehicles first, things like that.
We get this every stream. Tanks and nations that we're planning to implement in the game.
We are starting off with East and West Germany and the US and USSR. This is purely based on 1985 Fulda Gap kind of Cold War scenario. We will be adding more stuff later down the line, but we're not ready for that yet. I'm currently using the T55A, which has been upgraded with a Generation 1 night sight. It's very difficult to engage down into this valley because the range is, I think, in excess of 1 kilometer, and that's really stretching the abilities of this optic. Might not even come through on stream properly, come to think of it. It's very fuzzy. I'm shooting a 100mm gun. Oh, I've run out of Sabo. I'm gonna put heat back in. So this is a new thing. For those of us who have been following the Patreon demo, ammo switching is new. There's also ammo rack restocking. The public demo, you may remember, it didn't have an easy way to restock your ammo unless you use the cheat codes, Alt 1 and Alt 2. That is no longer the case, and when I finish engaging this M60, I will demonstrate using cheat codes. It won't burn, I think I need to hit it higher.
I want to talk, but I also want everyone to hear these new sounds.
Alright, let me pull back.
Mr. Gun, thank you for the donation.
Okay, I got the tank in a safe place. Let me go ahead and start restocking. And now we can do some questions.
There was one that came up a bunch, which I kind of want to get us talking about. There's a lot of questions about which countries or which nations we're adding, and I think try not to think of it in those terms. It's because we're going theater by theater. We're doing a game that's about not necessarily real, but plausible scenarios. So the reason we're doing East and West Germany, group of Soviet forces in Germany and the US, is because of the theater we're focusing on. What we include there is just about that. And if, for example, there was air support from some other country but not ground support, we would do the air support for that country but not the ground support once we get to air, if we ever do. So think of it more in terms of the situation rather than like we won't add a whole country, because how do you do that? They deploy different things to different places. The Afghan stuff will look different to the stuff that the Soviets are deploying to Germany, for example.
Indeed. We're focusing the game on realistic scenarios primarily. So people occasionally ask us, like, how will you balance battle ratings, things like that, and that's just not really a concept for this, because we're going to be basing this on time period, specific conflicts, things like that. So the composition of units, what vehicles they have, what equipment they have available, will be entirely based on the chronology of it, not some kind of artificial balancing. Oh yeah, one little neat feature here. We've got these, I think they're called GST lights. These convoy lights. They can be turned off. In case you like immersion, you want to keep your tank sneaky. But they look very nice, so I'm gonna leave them on for now.
How do we go about sourcing these new sounds?
Ah, yes. Our audio has been a bit of a journey. We have recruited assistance from some very talented people. Primarily, the samples were created by Laxman, who was a noted Arma sound modder. And then recently, we recruited a guy by the name of Kyle Kilpatrick to help us implement these sounds properly with Fmod, which is an audio suite for games. It's not finished yet, but as you can hear in this demo, we've made quite a bit of progress on that. And these new sounds for tank engines, turret traverse, stuff like that are very nice.
X hit the man. Thank you for the donation.
I think you'll see this soundscape stuff get better and better as we add more like layers and stuff to it. We've got, rather than in the prior versions that you guys have played, at least the patrons, instead of having just an engine sound that gets pitched, we've got multiple sounds of engine sounds, which is pretty standard for engines in games, like specifically combustion engines or whatever, vehicle engines. That's pretty standard by this point, but we've also done a few other things, like the track moving has its own sound channel, and if, for example, your engine is cut off but your tank keeps rolling, you can hear the tracks roll around in there on the rollers and stuff. And we've also got some ground, like the sound of the track cutting into the ground. And at the moment, we've only got a sample for that on grass, but I think once we switch into more different surfaces, it'll sound a lot more like you'll feel what you're driving over a bit more.
Yeah, sorry, I might have drowned you out of the noise a little bit.
Oh, maybe. We have a question that's, what about optimization? I don't know, what about it?
Optimization is an ongoing process. This demo has been optimized significantly in the time that it's existed, and it will be optimized more.
You'll need a decent computer to run it. We're not targeting the lowest of low end, because honestly, for us to get something that looks nice, it's kind of it's an ongoing struggle. It's on one side of the scales, you've got the fact we want to do large environments so that tanks make sense, because tanks exist to engage things over long distances. That's their job. Otherwise, you could blow something up with an RPG. On that end of the scales, we've got that, and then on the other side of that, we've got making it run on the lowest spec possible computer, which we try to do, but we're 6 people, 3 programmers, and we really it's just got to be a slow, ongoing process. It runs pretty well at the moment. It runs better than it ever has, I think, especially considering we've got the biggest map we've ever had. But there's still more work to do.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning again that our team is quite small. We're not a professional studio. Well, we try to be, but we are all indie developers. Most of us have other jobs. We have limited resources, especially. So we are doing all of this with essentially volunteer labor and crowdfunding.
Maybe it's a good time to bring up that one of the things you can do to help us when this public demo drops is talk about it and share it with people. Because
Yes.
the more people find out about the game, the more resources we might have open to us, and then we can do more work.
Thanks for the donation, Coom Jar. Which is the only way I'll pronounce that.
They're asking about armor modeling, particularly with classified tanks, which I think the answer to that for the moment is we're not doing classified tanks.
We're not doing classified tanks in the foreseeable future, but I mean, eventually, if we do modern stuff, we will have to get into that. It's kind of a recognized flaw of making a game about modern tanks, and if it comes to that, we can make educated guesses, and I think we'll be fine. Oh, I'm ranged way too high for that.
For now, we're focused on the 80s, so we don't need to worry about that problem because we want to do an authentic 1980s setting. And pretty much everything we need to put in the game is fairly well documented.
Yeah, it's not that hard to find sources for what we're actually doing here. It will be later, but we'll get there.
I actually really want to do a Ronald Reagan deepfake for one of our trailers at some point. I think that'd be really fun.
I also want that to happen. It's available to us, why not?
No gun depression. My Russian tank.
Someone asked about UI, HUD elements.
HUD is, yeah, it's very unfinished right now. It's very basic. It will be improving later. This is, we have to have priorities, and sometimes certain things like HUD lose out.
And what you guys are effectively seeing is our debuggy sort of way to give people functionality over, other graphics, basically due to those priorities. But we've talked about it. We want to get something new in relatively soon.
By the way, can you guys hear Kavi and Harry when they're talking? I can adjust my volume if it's not good enough.
I could just yell. Everyone's saying yes, but I think I'll just yell.
Okay. Yeah, definitely yell.
The question, how many missions are in the public build?
I haven't counted them. Let's see. There's how many were on the left side? We have all the previous missions for the 2-kilometer teaser map still in the game, and that was 5 or 6, something like that. I think there's the same amount or one more for the large map. I should probably check that, actually. I will when I can. Anyhow.
We also got someone asking about French. French is a tricky one because for the theater we're depicting, they were only like sort of, I think they were to get involved, but only if it got bad, and there was no on paper agreement about that, I don't think, or there was something weird about it. They weren't strictly involved like the English and the Belgians and stuff were. And I imagine, I'm not sure, but I think they would have only been in the northern plane. So if we do French, it'll probably be after we do British, if we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hellfish knows what's going on. He was there.
So, kind of a cool thing about this. I know this was a feature in the old build as well, but it's still cool. The after action traces show the status of your vehicle, including where all the ammo was. And same for any vehicles that are in the trace. But in addition, they also show, and this is new to this demo, the state of the vehicle as far as damage goes. So, like this M60 over here was hit earlier in the battle, and it was scorched, and that is reflected in the snapshot. And this is dynamic. The longer the tanks burn, the more the paint scorches and peels away. It's very cool to see, actually. Any other questions here before I queue up another mission?
We got people asking about Leopard 2. I think it'd be 2A4 in this setting.
I believe you're right. Of course, as we advance to different conflicts and we have opportunity to add other vehicles, we can have other versions of things. Like, we're starting with the M1IP Abrams for this conflict, but then we'll be able to add the M1A1HJ if we do, Desert Storm kind of thing. Stuff like that. Like I said, it's all based on specific conflicts and the needs of those. Like right now we're modeling Russian tanks that would have been relevant in the mid-80s in the Cold War, so T-62, T-80, T-64. We're not making a T-90 because they didn't exist yet. We think the T-90 is cool, but it doesn't help us yet.
Plans for off-grid artillery?
Artillery, the answer is basically the same every time, which is we can't really say yes or no to things that are not directly related to the ground combat, because while the combined arms experience is important and we are going to have like infantry and helicopters and stuff for scenery, we can't say exactly the extent of those things. Maybe we'll have off-map artillery, maybe not. Maybe it'll take a while. We have other priorities for now.
A lot of those kind of questions are going to be getting the same answer, like, we'd like to, but we got to get the bread and butter of the game solid first. We want to make sure that we're doing the thing that we're doing mostly, which is ground-based combat. We want to get that good, and then we'll add the extra stuff on top.
Yep. Somebody's asking if the bots controlling the other tanks have been improved. The AI is completely new in the Patreon build and now this demo, and it is very fresh. It is brand new, not particularly full-featured. You're going to notice them doing things that don't make sense. Acting like they're blind, or looking off in the wrong direction, whatever, running into each other. That's all going to improve. Like I said, we're a small team. We're putting these things into the game as fast as we can handle it. And we know that there are little oddities and bugs and things. We're not going to leave it like that, obviously. We want the game to be as good as it can be. So if you see strangeness in this demo, just know we see it too. We probably hate it more than you do, and we'll be patching it out.
Got a question about customization. That's like a pretty easy thing for us to do. We just kind of, it's very much like it's literally a cosmetic thing. So we've just not gotten to it yet, but it's definitely a thing we can do. Our vehicle shader at the moment has a separate layer for paint job. The camouflage on the M60 is a separate image, so that can be replaced with other schemes, and we can do like whitewashes and all that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna show something that's just kind of an early state here. So this is the proving ground map. You can see various vehicles and kind of drive them through a course and testing range. The T-72, specifically this is the T-72 M1 for the East Germans. It is not done in time for this patch. We have a whole bunch of things that we have to do for a vehicle to make it actually ready to fully use. Not just the model and the driving physics, but also the armor modeling, the internal components, and the gun sight reticles, primarily. The T-72 has all of those elements done, but they are not all put together yet, and we didn't have time for it. Small team. We had higher priorities for this month. So you can still use the T-72 in the proving ground map, but you can't use it in combat missions yet. This is my favorite vehicle that's actually in the game right now, though. It's just absolutely wicked. And it has this, you know, the aft cap ejection going on. It has a really strong presence as far as audio goes. It drives well. It's just a great vehicle.
When we get this done and put together, this is probably going to be one of those cases where it's going to go Patreon build first.
Probably. Yeah, the Patreon build is how we get our funding right now, so we want to incentivize people to support us. We are probably going to put things into that build quicker. You know, not that we don't like the rest of the community, we appreciate all of you, but we do have to get the game done somehow. And so if you support us at the $3 tier or higher, you will get access to the Patreon build, which has immediate features whenever they're done.
We're bringing back the shareware model. It'll be like episode 1 and 2 on floppy disk.
Shareware.
Question about vehicle gore.
Hold on, the AZ is talking. Okay, what was the question?
Question about vehicle gore. I'm guessing how that relates to vehicles blowing up, pieces flying off of it.
Oh yeah, that's all. It's being improved over time. So we have the first layer of it right now, which is the scorching on the paint, and turrets being detached if there's enough explosive force. We can expand that very easily with smaller things blowing off, decals on the surface like impact marks, stuff like that. We could do like localized scorching maybe, or damage. We have various plans and prototypes. We put these things in when they're done, so just rest assured that there's going to be more visual candy later on, and we're working on lots of stuff there. Someone's asking about first-person view for different camera, different optics and viewports. That's very tricky to do because then you have to model the interior, and we already barely have enough time to make what we're making now. And also, interior modeling is extremely labor intensive, and labor is money, and we don't have a lot of that. So we're probably not going to be giving you an immersive first-person view for the foreseeable future. We're giving you optics. We're expanding the optics that we'll give you soon. Like, we'll have commander optics and things like that, maybe some periscopes. But there won't be much surrounding it. You won't be sitting inside the compartment seeing everything. I want to cheat this really quick.
Any plans for West German stuff?
Yes, we will be adding West German stuff soon. We are starting with US and East Germany because that's just kind of how it shook out with the vehicles that we chose. West Germany and USSR proper will be following as well. I'm showing this interior just because I think it's really cool, the modeling that went into this, but keep in mind this was made just so that when the turret flies off of this tank you can see some detail. This is not an actual interior model, and it wouldn't suit for a first-person view. These ammo pieces were done by Harry as well. He's our lead artist. They're very nice, but you'll probably never see them up close in normal circumstances, so.
I think this was an earlier question, but since you've got ammo front and center, custom ammo loadouts and racking.
So choosing your loadout before the mission?
Yeah,
we have some ideas for that. That's a lower priority because as long as you have ammo to use, that's, you know, that gets you ahead pretty far, and we can work on other things that are missing. eventually we will be looking into stuff like that. It's possible that you won't really get to pick for some situations, like if the mission is scenario based and we know what kind of ammo load a specific unit would have carried, you're probably just going to be given that ammo load. But we'll see. Some of these things are not set in stone. We have to test them, prototype things, talk about it internally, and then we decide how to handle it. We don't have like specific answers for every question right now. Some things are too far into the future for us to actually decide right now. If we did decide, we would just end up changing our minds later. So a lot of times we'll answer things with we don't know, and that's not because we're like running around lost and we don't know how to make a game. That's just we don't want to give you answers that are fake because we really haven't gotten that far in the planning yet.
Yeah. And that's okay to say we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Do the projectiles, new projectile models, do they actually come out of the barrel?
Not yet. That's planned, though. The reason those high detail models were made in the first place, as you know, Harry, is because we want to provide a better detailed view when you slow down time. We have time scale controls. They are visible if you hit F1 and read the controls list. If you slow down time enough, you can watch rounds fly through the air, and this was the case in the public demo as well. But this time we want to have higher detailed models for those who slow down time to watch them. Those didn't make it in yet. There's just too much stuff to add at once. I'm hoping to put them in soon because they're really well done. We have the sabo pedals separated, the obturators, we have fins animated on some of them. It's really quite fantastic. And we'll see that later.
It's pointless, but it's nice marketing material.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. In our mission editor setup, what's the level of control with AI, pathfinding, engagement, etc.?
In our mission editor setup or mission editor for people?
I'm gonna say let's describe how we changed it for right now, or the public build stands, and we can kind of get into like a custom.
Sure. I mean, right now it's fairly basic, right? We just have our first iteration, which is they can follow waypoints. They can have engagement skill that depends on the time of day, whether the target's moving, what their optics are like, and there's speed control. They stop to shoot. They try to close distance if they're too far. It's all fairly simple, like exactly what you'd expect from basic combat AI. We haven't put formations back in yet. Unfortunately, I didn't have time for that this month. But, all of these things are being added as we get the bandwidth for development to add them back in. We reinvented this game from the ground up, and some things are just missing temporarily. That's unfortunate, but that's the state of it. And it's not really hurting it that much these days. Like, we have missions, they're playable, there's some rough edges, but they're there. And as far as a demo goes, and especially a free demo, I think we're doing pretty well.
Someone in chat, just become a dev to use the mission editor.
Yeah, exactly. Just get professional level skills, join the team, and yeah, you can have a mission editor.
What vehicles are in the game currently?
What vehicles are in the game currently? That's a good question. We have, apparently, the UAZ. We have the TOW launcher. We have the T-72M1. The T-55A. The M901 ITV. The M60A3 TTS with thermals. The M113A3? A1? Can't remember.
It converts.
So both.
If you turn off those fuel tanks and maybe do another few little things, Hellfish will be able to tell you what to do.
Yeah. BRDM2 and 9K111.
You're getting corrected. M113, Gavin.
Yeah. Sure, okay.
Track Daddy says not Gavin, so it's not Gavin.
Okay, it's not
I
Gavin.
believe
There you
Track
go.
Daddy.
Gavin stands blown out. Okay. So anyway, all these vehicles are present in the proving ground, but as far as things you'll actually see in missions right now, the most finished vehicles and the ones that we chose to showcase in missions are the M60A3 TTS, the T55A, the M113, the BRDM2, and the 2 launchers sometimes. So you get 2 tanks, 2 scouts / APCs, and 2 emplacements. And we'll be adding in more stuff as soon as we can. For example, if you've been following the project, you know that we have the Abrams in progress, we have the Bradley in progress, we've got the BMP-1, obviously the T-72 is right on the verge of being finished. Just all kinds of stuff coming down the pipe. Some trucks, dare I say even some vehicles that are not Russian or American. But we'll get those when we get them.
There's a lot of stuff that's kind of like you can drive it around and you can shoot it, but it's just missing a bit of that stuff that really is very characteristic of the vehicle, and we don't want to like put it out as like a kind of half-assed version. We want to make sure that it's got its character.
Yeah.
For example, the Bradley, like I think to get that out, we've really got to have the way the tow launcher works set up correctly, and maybe the proper night vision with the red tint or whatever.
Yeah, the nightmare vision.
Makes it unique.
Hellfish asked about the BTR-60 PB. I think that is also in the pipeline. It's the model itself is done, but we just haven't rigged anything on that yet.
There's a big queue of things trying to get into the game.
We haven't even gotten to target cheese yet.
Yeah. Target cheese is a myth. It doesn't exist.
Did you say that?
It doesn't exist officially.
To put it in context, we've got one guy who can set up the vehicles, and that's Josh, and he's writing all the main stuff. We're trying to change it so that more of us can do the setup, like the tweaking how the driving works and giving them damage models and stuff. Like we can model all the stuff and we can make all the content, but to actually tie it up and make it into a functional package, only Josh knows how to do that because he wrote that system. And if we make him do all of that all the time, things like ammo switching won't get in. So we kind of opt for like let's get the functionality going rather than adding more and more.
But over time, we'll have some documentation around that to spread the love. Along with that, even though we're 6 people, like Josh works on this for the most part all day. The rest of us basically have jobs and whatnot, a lot to do.
Everybody else has a life. I do gonna eat PC. Yeah, that's pretty much the reason why things can't get added faster. Like, we have models for things that we don't have in the game yet. Why not? Because nobody is full-time except me, and I can't do everything. Time is very limited, and if we had more resources, we could hire people to help with that, but we work with what we've got. I think we've done very well with our current level of community support, which is, by the way, we're very grateful for that. We could not have done this without you guys, and we will continue to rely on that and use it efficiently.
If you keep playing and sharing the game, maybe more of us can quit our jobs and make the game faster.
Yeah, spread the word. There are a lot of people who know that this project exists, and that's really cool, but there are also a lot of people who would like it that don't know about it. So tell your friends, make videos, do whatever you can to get it out there. Early in the project's life, we said we don't really want to have a lot of coverage of it yet because we want to put the best foot forward. It didn't feel like it was ready, yada yada yada. That's no longer the case. We are confident that it speaks for itself well enough now. We are okay with all of the publicity that we can handle. It's time to ramp up as much as we can. We need serious funding and progress to get where we want to go. We're trying to do a vertical slice this year, if possible, and that's going to take a lot of effort and resources. Also, I should probably
Ronald
explain.
Reagan streaming this game.
Huh.
We want to get Obama streaming.
Yep.
I
should
say
probably
something.
I should probably explain again for the people who don't know or want a reminder what we're doing with this project as far as timeline and plans. So Gunner Heat PC will eventually be a paid game. It will have no in-game economy system to try to drive funding, at least nothing related to gameplay mechanics or pay-to-win kind of things. We're banking on the idea that people will pay for an experience that stands on its own and doesn't require premium currency and things like that. In order to accomplish that, first we're making this demo and updating it as we can with the Patreon support. You get access to the most up-to-date version of this alpha at all times if you're a Patreon supporter. The public version, this update right now is a rare thing. This is a big jump forward, but going forward from here, it will be falling behind the Patreon version again. Just not as bad as it was before the 1.5 year gap. We will eventually reach a point where we have a full game experience built around 1985 full to gap scenario. That will become the Gunner Heat PC vertical slice, and we're planning to also release that for free. After that, everything going forward is supporters only, and the final full game, Gunner Heat PC, is going to include several theaters of war, different scenarios, and the vertical slice will be essentially a small preview of that. So if you can't afford to support the project, you can look forward to small updates to this demo as we add things, bug fixes, features, eventually the vertical slice, and then after that it's paid only. If you're a supporter, you get everything immediately all the time, and eventually we have a full product that we funded by your support, which is pretty cool. Any good questions that I'm missing here?
We got the classic question about grinding, and maybe it's, again, we have to go kind of over this every time we do a stream because new people show up. So sorry for the people that have to hear it all the time, but that's like the structure of our game is not, it's this grinding doesn't mean anything in what we've set up. It's not you don't unlock a tech tree, that's just not the structure of the game.
Yes. The idea is that grinding is a game mechanic. Sometimes it's to make the game more interesting and give it longevity, something to work for, like a goal in the game. But I think too often it's used as a way to make people buy things in the game. And we explicitly reject that in our design. We think that that's harming games, and so we want to avoid that. So there's not going to be a traditional tank game grind in Gunner Heat PC. There's not going to be a big tech tree that you have to dump hours and hours into working your way through, and maybe I can buy some premium time and go through it faster. It might be worth it. Like, that's not going to be a thing at all. We want the game to stand on its own. You pay to get in and you get everything. If we add extra content for pay, it's going to be substantial, like full DLC packs, something that feels worth your while. And we're not going to stymie your progression or your fun in order to try to drive some kind of economic concern. The game is going to be based on scenarios, it's going to be based on combined arms experience. It's not tank deathmatch, it's not PvP arena. It will be co-op based and really focus on depicting these vehicles doing their intended purposes, their intended roles in a conflict. I think it'll be pretty cool. We'll see. What else we got?
accessibility to the game. How steep will the learning curve be?
Well, our plan is to have it be very easy to get into, but have a high skill ceiling, specifically because of the realistic depiction of tank fire control systems. So, for example, if you have played a tank game, you know how to aim and fire at stuff. You probably know about the different kinds of ammo. But you might not know, for example, that the gun sight in the T-55 has a sliding range scale, and you line it up with the marks depending on which ammo type you have loaded. That's not depicted in most games that are easy to get into. So this will be something where the casual players, or the less experienced players, can jump in. They can aim the gun sight and aim it above the target, watch the shot drop and adjust, and they can play the game. It's completely usable. But somebody who's taken the time to learn the tank can say, oh, wait a minute, I'm using my Stadia rangefinder, I'm estimating the distance to that target, and then I'm going to input my range and score a hit. And they get the reward of their extra knowledge and their extra diligence in studying their vehicle by having that higher performance in the actual scenario. Also, I cheated because I know how far that target is because I'm the developer. Anyway, I'm a master T-55 gunner. That's my story.
That's my story as well. Good job.
Oh yeah, I do want to point out while I have people watching, the M60 has some interesting limitations in its fire control system. Why are these? Let me get this noisy thing to the range. I will show what I mean. In the meantime, any more questions?
Action doesn't know shortcut through the woods.
I do know shortcut through the woods. I put it there. I was already past it, and I figured I would take the scenic route and let you guys talk, because this is a Q&A as well. Also, actually, I think technically Coffee put it there, so credit where credit's due.
Thank you. Thank you, but thank you.
So, M60 fire control. This looks like the Abrams TIS view, but this is not. This is the M60A3 TTS view, tank thermal sight. It has some things you're going to need to be aware of. First of all, the lead calculation is always active and maintaining the last 1.5 seconds of your turret traverse, but it only applies when you laze. So if I'm doing this, moving back and forth, and then I laze, it adjusts my reticle to a fixed location, and it will stay there based on what it thinks my current lead attempt is until I dump lead, which is done currently by control laze. If I decide I really want to aim at that tank and I quickly aim toward it and then laze, even though I was essentially stationary when I lazed, in the last 1.5 seconds I averaged a pretty good clip for turret traverse, so now I've got lead and I've got to dump it. This is how you're going to have to handle this tank, because that's how it worked in real life. The Abrams has a much better constructed fire control system physically. It has a separate digital optic, and it was able to independently stabilize and have much more active compensation. So in the Abrams, when that's added, the M1IP, you'll have things like inertia compensation. You'll have live lead updates where you'll watch the reticle drift around as long as you're engaging lead. No such luxuries in the M60A3. In fact, if you're moving in the M60, you'll notice a significant drop off in accuracy because the tank has no concept of its own momentum and how that affects shots. If you're moving laterally to your target sideways, you're going to have some flyers. It's not going to work out. So you need to operate with the limitations that this vehicle actually has. And this is the core of how we're making this game stand out from others. We want to have a game that has simulator level depiction of armor, munitions, and gunnery systems. But the controls are unified and simple. You don't need to remember specific things for each vehicle as far as key shortcuts or things like that. We have stuff condensed together. We have menus for things that are more detailed. Like, you don't have to memorize the key bindings for dump lead, toggle stabilizers, whatever, because it's in this quick menu on Q. So this is going to be easy to get into while still being realistic and engaging in the pieces that we feel actually count, which are gunnery and target interaction. Has an FAQ been made? There is an FAQ on GunnerHeatPC.com. It has not been updated in a little while. It should be mostly current still. We've been very busy this month, but one of the things that I want to get to soon is making an update to the FAQ and a new vision post. It's been a very long time since we commented on our plans in writing. I want to do a new write-up on what we're trying to accomplish here, what we see the game becoming, and that way we can have something to point people to when they're asking, what even is this game? Is this War Thunder? You know, it's we get a lot of the same questions, understandably, from people, and we can probably answer those with some specific posting.
Yeah. Part of our plans is to actually do a bit more frequent dev blog posts. Like, I think it would be pretty cool to do a write-up from Harry about some of his modeling process, do a write-up from me for tools.
Yep. We have several subject matter experts as well that we work with. It would be cool to hear from them about some of their specific areas of expertise.
I was going to say do a write-up from Waffle about how everything's cursed.
We have... The team has accomplished some very nice feats. Like, as far as game development goes, it's pretty typical stuff, shaders and different code things, but watching it all take form and watching the project improve as this effort goes into it is really cool. And I hope you guys get somewhat of the same experience watching the finished products come out over time.
Yeah. A year and a half compared to what we had for the other public demo. This is just, it's amazing to see come to form.
We
it's
have
such a good base.
Yes. We have a question, probably super far away, but is there ever any idea of getting things like helicopters and aircraft? Yes. We are planning to have air vehicles that are not player controlled. This is potentially a difference from some other things you might be thinking of. We're not going to let you fly helicopters. They're going to be there because the tank is operating in the context of a larger battle, and that battle will include things like infantry, helicopters, maybe attack aircraft, and you will see them. As for the infantry, you'll be able to fight them as well, but your concern in this game will be driving an armored vehicle. So those things will be kind of like enhanced scenery almost. They'll matter, but you won't be able to directly control them. Except if you're driving an APC and your mission is to unload infantry at a certain place, then you will interact with your infantry squad by telling them to get out. But other than that, they're AI controlled elements, and your main goal is still your own vehicle.
I think the word, like the verb for it, is you'll be able to direct some of those assets. You won't necessarily be able to control them. They'll kind of, like any air thing, you might be able to spot a target for it, and you can influence it. But we don't want to do a thing where players can jump into a helicopter and kamikaze into an enemy tank or something.
Yeah, or hover 10 kilometers above the battle and fire missiles. No reason I'm saying that, I'm sure.
Absolutely no reason.
Never
About
seen
the
that.
realism stuff, there was a bit of a back and forth about realism and the role of realism in the game. I think we're fairly close to on the same page about this, but just jump in if you disagree, guys. I think we use realism as a way to create a framework that makes sense to build like scenarios that are fun and engaging. So realism is like the way we create our game rules. It's not there for the sake of being realistic. It's not a study sim. It's what we use it so that people who have some knowledge about this stuff, they can apply it to like learning about the real vehicles and the real history and all that kind of stuff is a way to learn about the game. So if you already know something, you can come into it and understand it easier. And if you don't already know something about it, you can go and read on Wikipedia or whatever, and you'll know a little bit more about how to play the game. Maybe you might get some clues about what vehicles can do what and all that kind of thing.
Yes. It is important to emphasize that we're not trying to make this fully realistic for the sake of being realistic, as Harry said. When you ask questions like, oh, are you going to do interiors? Are you going to do... we've had people ask about like manual transmission, engine chokes, things like that. And really what it comes down to is if making a feature realistic isn't going to accomplish anything gameplay wise and it's just going to be, oh cool, that's realistic, it's probably not really important for our goals. We want the game to look realistic, and we want the systems that you interact with in gunnery to feel realistic. And after that, it's all gameplay. We don't need all the other stuff. Go ahead.
It's kind of a UI UX thing, right? If you base something in a bit of realism, like the bits of realism that we take and use, we use that to create a situation where the things, like the behavior of the game is as expected. Like if we put a tank in and it gets blown up by a machine gun, you don't expect that to be the case. It doesn't make sense, and the rules of your game aren't intuitive and can't be processed easily. Whereas if it's realistic and if that situation can't happen, and you know that if you come up against an APC with a main battle tank, that you're probably going to be okay, and that's your job to just take that thing out and eat it for breakfast. That's kind of like the player understands more about the game by default, and that's kind of the role of, if realism done well. Even though that's like the most basic example imaginable. Like there's other things like, you can't turn a turret faster than a certain speed. Your stabilizer might not work in some vehicles, all that kind of thing. And
Right.
that your gunner might get tired cranking the handles of a BRDM or whatever.
Kadi brings up a good example in chat. Let's say something like engine flooding in water is realistic and important because it makes more sense.
Yeah, because it directly affects your gameplay, and not in a imperceptible way, but in a major way. Yeah. It might not make sense for us to simulate, the engine wasn't warmed up properly, so it has this much RPM loss or something like that. I don't know, can't think of an example. Or you use the wrong kind of fuel. Like that's not gonna really make a difference or be relevant. But if you put your tank in a river, yeah, the engine's gonna flood. So that's a major thing. We'll probably have to simulate that.
There's certain situations where if you don't simulate something, you end up with sort of leaks and gaps in the whole context of the thing. And this is kind of the problem that you get playing something like War Thunder. And War Thunder is a good game. It's a deathmatch game, and that's its job. That's what it's doing, and it's doing a good job of that. But when you create a deathmatch game about MBTs, there's a lot of stuff that MBTs are designed a certain way because they interact with a lot of other stuff that's not MBTs, and tons of those features that are there to support it in its role don't make sense when you just have it in a deathmatch situation. And that's why you have all these weird things like battle ratings to balance that out and fill all those little try and plug those gaps where reality is sort of leaking. Whereas we want to try and get all that stuff, like the things that the vehicle needs to do its job, Those things are sort of there.
Yes.
Apart from maybe, we don't want you changing spark plugs and stuff like that. If you want to go full realism, we probably have to include a lot of waiting around, and war is a lot of sitting around waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, ask any tank crewman how much time they spend in their tank versus cleaning things. Yeah, that was a great point about people asking about battle ratings and things like that from other games. We've talked about this before, but it's worth repeating. There's a bit of there's some preconceptions about what a tank game is, because there are several tank games that follow a similar pattern out there. They have battle ratings or tiers. They have team balance. They have these deathmatch arena fights. They have a tech tree with grind, and this is just sort of how a tank game works. And we are not following that pattern. So there are certain concepts that are alien to us. Like, people ask, are you going to add the MBT-70? The MBT-70 was never serving in an actual military and never saw any conflict. So we don't care about it. It's a prototype. Prototypes are neat, and they are not relevant to a game about actual conflict, in our opinion. So, people asking about balance or battle ratings, prototypes, whatever, those things, they're not really going to be a thing. We have our own design paradigm that we're following, and we think it will work out. Kadi asks, but people can mod it in if they really want it. In the end, modding is not something that we can prevent, but I'm not actually sure yet how much mod support we're going to provide. We're going to try to make it so that the game it's got these very high quality vehicle assets and all these intricate systems interacting. Under the hood, it's very detailed. The simulation level, I'll get into that. But anyway, mods, we don't want to get into that right away, because that sort of, it can affect the image of the game. If we have this high standard for vehicles and then we also say, oh, by the way, you can mod, people are going to put in a lot of low effort content, and for a game that's this new and this unknown, I think that's very dangerous at this point. Maybe once we've established ourselves and people know what we're about, we can look into stuff like that. Go ahead.
Created, like, the game itself is a brand in a way. Like, I know that sounds really commercial and funny, but you need control of your identity of your game. And if we add modding, we get this situation, like, and I'm not disdaining anyone here, but when someone's new and they come to the game, the first thing they ask is, how are you going to do? Are you going to do unlockable vehicles? Which prototypes are you going to add? Are you going to add premiums? All those kind of questions. And the thing that says to us is that if we opened up modding, the first thing would happen is they would try and turn our game, like the average player who's not, who hasn't been following for a long time and sort of sees our vision yet. And this is nothing against them. They're going to want the game to be more like what they're used to, and they'll mod it away from its identity that makes it unique. And we need to establish that identity first, and then when people understand what the game is about, and it makes sense and it's obvious from the first look, then maybe modding would be a little bit more like, people would be modding things that make sense in the ecosystem that we're creating.
Yes. Also, since I touched on it, I want to mention the actual systems that are under the hood in this game are very detailed. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but we have put a significant amount of effort into specifically the ballistics and the fire system, the flammables. For example, if I were to grab a tow missile and shoot the T-55. Okay, I've shot the T-55. Now what happens? If this is a typical video game, I've now taken off hit points, and depending on how that went, the tank will maybe explode. But we have, as you probably know if you've been following the project, we have very detailed internal module modeling, and there are no health bars. The damage is all assessed based on what's hit, but there's more to it than that. We also have ammo, and the ammo is part of our flammables system. This is modeled in great detail, separate compartments, temperature tracking, flash points, sympathetic detonation, things like this. So what this tank is about to do in response to this missile hitting it is all based on dynamic calculation. It's not pre-baked. There are no timers, wait this long and then explode. There's no random dice roll for whether the turret flies off. It's all based on temperatures and pressures and live interaction. Now I get to see if anything actually lit on fire. And it looks like it escaped that particular fate. So, I'm going to shoot it again.
Yes, it's definitely totally unnecessary, but it sells the game. People look at this and they go, well, that's cool that they did that, and people are curious about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we could dice roll and the game would still work, but we're doing this because it's a fan game. It's for people who like this stuff, right?
Yeah. So this time when I hit it, the turret immediately flew off. The reason for that is because I hit a warhead directly. I know this because that's how this system works. It's the only way for you to get an immediate detonation. And we did it this way because that's how it works in real life too. The turret doesn't fly off just on its own if it burns long enough or something. It requires high explosives to detonate in a confined space that has no outlet. This tank was buttoned up, the hatches were all shut, and the overpressure from the warhead exploding and the sympathetic detonations of other rounds in the rack has nowhere to go. So it exceeds the limit placed on the turret in the code, and it throws it off with a force that is corresponding to the level of pressure.
And I mean, this might sound hypocritical after we did our little speech about, why we choose realism and when we do realism and when we don't. I think the thing about this sort of like the gunnery and the terminal ballistics and the way the systems get damaged and destroyed and all this kind of thing, this is something we put a lot of detail into. I think the reason that we go there is when you've got a crew in this vehicle, right? This simulation is going to be the difference between whether they live or die. And the story of that crew operating that vehicle, that's going to be how we generate their story of how they're going, The most important thing that can happen or not happen to someone driving that thing is something explodes inside the vehicle. And all the things that are associated with that, everything that happens from that point on, we want that to be meaningful, and we want you to be able to read that and say, okay, this is exactly what happened to those guys, and this is whether they lived or died. And
yes,
have a bit of a narrative building up about that.
Yep, all of this damage calculation, it doesn't just serve the purpose of deciding what kind of fire effect you get after you kill the tank. It does affect the live performance. Like these tanks, their status of being dead or alive is based on whether they can operate, and that relies on the crew as well as the systems. So fire progression, and when we add it, fire suppression systems, how the crew react, how the vehicle reacts to the fire, that can, as Harry said, make the difference between life and death. And so we need to make sure that this is detailed enough that your survivability reflects the vehicle's actual design intent and performance. If you get hit in an Abrams and a fire starts in the engine bay, the fire suppression system is going to kick on by itself. That's a feature of that vehicle that makes it more survivable. If your ammo rack gets compromised and the propellant experiences a deflagration and your ammo doors are closed because you're not in the middle of reloading, it's going to overpower the blowout panels on the roof of the turret, and the crew will be safe, if a little uncomfortable, because the fire will vent out and not into the compartment. That's a feature of that vehicle. And instead of just setting a flag that says Abrams instantly killed by fire, false, that doesn't really cut it. That excludes scenarios like, what if the doors are open? What if the doors were penetrated and there's a hole in them? And by the way, I should mention the fire system includes this. If you make holes in things, they become vents for the heat and the fire. And so this affects how the actual consequences play out. So we want to make sure that those systems are very detailed. I should also mention, as I've been watching this fire burn and I have the ammo debug turned on to show the actual rounds, you might have noticed they've been disappearing over time, because as they burn up, they are now gone. They're effectively no longer present, and that's reflected in the vehicle. Like at this point it doesn't matter, you're not reloading, but the system is set up to just operate realistically regardless. And this front rack, I should point out, is surviving temporarily because this is mostly enclosed. It's the wet rack, the wet storage inside the fuel tank, and the fuel tank has not ruptured in this scenario, amazingly. So these rounds are more insulated from the heat and they have not burned up yet, but they will given a very short amount of time.
And again, let's bring it back to the thing that we want to do with this, right? Like this is all cool simulation, but at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to make you sad. We want you to be driving around and we want you to be attached to your crew. And we want you to be experiencing sorrow when you read what happened to your boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we haven't gotten into any of that yet, but we want the game to be about not just the vehicles, but also about the piloting of those vehicles, the human factor, the crews. And one way to simulate that is to not have them just be like hit points inside your compartment. They they have psychology and skill levels and detailed health status. You guys, if you've been following the project, you might remember that we have separate like limb hit zones and things like that, and organs in the crew modeling, because that detail affects their chances of survival. And so they're not just you don't get hit by a Sabo dart and your crew gets turned orange. It matters where they get hit, and if they got hit and they survived, they might still be unable to do their jobs because they've lost the use of a limb or something, or they're just critically wounded.
We might get to a point where you see, like, if someone gets an injury that's kind of permanent, but they can still do their job, maybe they carry it with them for the rest of whatever you're doing, and you'll know that character has that. The character's been molded a little bit by the events of what you actually did in the game, and you might look at it and go, okay, this character's got a debuff. That's because of something that actually happened in this mission that I played. It's not just something that we wrote in. It's not a text file just telling you what happened. It's that happened.
This is getting more into like persistent campaign stuff, which we're still kind of planning out. Not every situation in this game is going to be like, oh, your crew and what about their families and all that. Like that's kind of like one of the ideas that we have for a specific game mode that might be cool, like following your one crew through various stages of a war. That's not going to be the only thing though. There's going to be kind of these skirmish missions where you just get thrown into, you are in the guards whatever division driving a T80, that's your job, go do it, and it's quick action, easy. It's not all going to be this kind of stuff. We'll cover this more when we make vision posts soon, probably within the next few days. We have various ideas for gameplay and types of gameplay, and they will vary significantly in how much control you have over the setup, how much detail is put into certain things like crew. You might just jump into a preset and go. You're in this vehicle, you have this mission, or it might be a longer running thing. You have a strategic map, and what you do affects the way it plays out. So we'll talk more about that in the future.
If people want to spread the word, not to change subjects, but I'm going to change subjects. If you want to spread the word, Should they be reaching out to streamers? Should they be just throwing it out there? How do you want that to
Whatever
proceed?
you want to do. Anything helps. If you just want to tell your friends this game is really cool, you should try it, that's really cool. We appreciate it. If you have a connection to somebody who likes this kind of stuff and is some kind of influencer or video content creator, that would be very helpful as well. I know there are a lot of very passionate tank game players on YouTube, for example. Some of them are in our community even, and a lot of them seem like they're wanting new content lately, and this might be a good avenue for them. So definitely spread the word however you feel you have the ability to.
We had a few questions about how we're going to monetize and whether we're going to do Kickstarter and all this kind of stuff. We need to figure that out, and it'll be easier to figure that out if more people are talking about it. If we can gauge what kind of things the community would like, where they would want it to go, and how much interest there would be in the different platforms that we have available to us. We talk about it a little bit, but we don't really know exactly where we'd go with it.
It's like we're aware of different avenues that we have for funding, but it's not clear yet what the best approach is. And some of that is going to be informed by how popular we can get this in the short term, how much exposure we can have, how much the crowdfunding pans out. So we'll probably know before 2021 is over how we're making the game. But for now, it's a very exciting kind of crossroads for us. We have this thing, we're definitely very invested in it. It's coming along really well, and we have this kind of small passionate community around it. And where we go from here is unknown, but it's definitely going to be exciting either way.
Shark Tank. For that reason, I'm out. What are we giving the patrons next? T72?
Yeah, T72 is going to be very soon because, like I said, we have all the pieces made for it already.
And then Abrams, and then the IFBs? Or they want to know. They keep asking.
Some of this stuff we don't want to set in stone because, like, what if I say, oh, you guys...
So bad, though.
What if I say you guys are getting the Bradley next, and then we discover that there's a problem with the Bradley, and it'll take 2 weeks to sort out a new thing to support it? If we promised something, you'll be disappointed. But if we say we're adding a new vehicle soon, and then we discover that the Bradley needs more time and we give you the T72 instead, you're not going to be sad. But if we told you something else and then changed our minds, now it's awkward. So we try not to overtell what's going on if we're not like 90% sure yet.
Let me tell you where you just messed up. Now everyone's going to expect Bradley.
Everyone already expected Bradley. It's in all of our teasers.
They have seen it driving around, haven't they?
Yeah. We've shown it
It's all
driving,
right.
we've shown it in pictures, we constantly post about it on the patron channel and the Discord. It's a known thing. They know they're getting Bradley. What they might not know is that Bradley has no gun sight reticle right now, and Bradley has no toe box animation. And Bradley needs a little bit more time in the oven before it's done.
Yeah, we don't want to give you guys like the crappy version of stuff. We want to make sure that it's all like the reason we've got just 113 M60 T55 and BRDM is that they're pretty well represented. All the systems pretty much work. Like we need a few like commander's optics and all that kind of thing. But most of what you want to do and most of what you expect from these vehicles, it's happening. But we couldn't do that with the Abrams and the Bradley right now. And the T-72 is pretty close, but not quite.
Yeah.
The other thing is if we add the T-72 now, it's just going to be the best vehicle in the game. What do we do?
Oh yeah, bar none. The T-72 has so much more armor than the M60. It wouldn't even be close. It would just beat everything. And also the fact that every tank in the game right now can kill each other. The T-55 and the M60 have no resistance to each other right now. even with heat. But, well, I guess certain parts of the turret on the M60 could do it. Mostly, no. The T-72 can resist the M60's ammunition from the frontal aspect extremely well. Heat ammo, I think it can just shrug off outright. And the Sabo APF SDS, the turret is resistant enough that it would stop it, especially at range. So if the T-72 was facing the M60 right now in the current demo, it would just be the T-72 beating up M60s all day. However, when the Abrams is ready, that will change that situation, because now they can't kill each other except if they hit specific places. So it'll be a lot more interesting.
I think even if anyone's read that semi-famous CIA report, I don't know if there's a TOW missile in existence in our timeline that can reliably pen the T-72 from front, which is a pretty big deal. Like, it's a pretty well-protected vehicle. We think of them as shitboxes now, but at the time they were state-of-the-art. They're really good.
Yeah, T-72 got a bad showing against the Abrams, because the first actual conflict they had against each other was T-72M versus M1A1HA. So this was like years apart in development. As far as when they actually came out and the anticipated matchup between them, they were fairly even. The Abrams obviously had better armor, but while the 105mm gun was standard on the Abrams, the T-72 would still have been a challenging target for it, at least until M900 ammo came out. So in this time period, for our game, there will be some very interesting matchups, and people might not expect how it plays out if they're used to kind of the lore around these tanks as far as how they actually faced off in reality later on. Yeah, the turret did just move the hull. The turrets have proper physics once they fly off, and the hulls as well. So if the turret smacks the hull on the way down, it will react accordingly.
I don't think we can snap the torsion bars yet, though.
No, that's
or
true.
Whatever happens to them when they burn out in pictures.
Yeah, I do want to add that at some point. And like the gun sagging after it burns out for a while and the hydraulics fail.
What I really want to do is flip a Sheridan with the HE round.
Heh. Sheridan will be fun.
Oh, yeah.
Supposedly it was very well suited to European plains, much more so than the jungle. That'll be interesting.
We need to get the develop the screen decals for cherry juicing first.
For what?
Was it fluid for the hydraulic system or something used to spray all over dudes because it'd rupture or something?
Oh,
because there's so much recoil in the thing.
Are we gonna simulate the ammo all being soggy and you can't use any of it too? Anyhow, what other questions? Someone's questioning the stopped by left track. Yeah, the materials system needs some work. I mean, I'll admit straight up, if you hit tracks from the side, they overperform right now. I know this is kind of a meme. You've seen it in potentially some other games. It's known and it's going to be corrected. As soon as I have these tagged with the correct kind of steel and the way that affects their resistance, that's gonna be solved. For now, try not to hit tracks from the side. Will you add an armor map for players to see? I think so, eventually. You can... I mean, the armor is all based on the real armor. So if you know the thicknesses of a T-55's armor from another source, you know what it is here. But I think we will eventually add some kind of preview mode Yeah, I mean, that'll just be cool too, because people like to look at those. I know a lot of my time in other tank games is spent just looking at the models and, the systems and the armor. So, of course. What else? Okay. Things moving forward today. The demo is ready, but we need to put just a little bit more time into making sure that we didn't miss anything. We don't want to release it and then there's a game-breaking bug that I missed at 4 a.m. yesterday, and now it's gone out to thousands of people. So we're going to take a little bit of time to do that. We will then release the demo on itch.io. The link for this is on gunnerheatpc.com, the giant button at the top that says play the demo. Right now, that's still the old demo. If you go there right now and you download it, you'll get this thing with free models and weird graphics, and nothing is as it looks in the stream. However, if you wait until later today, we'll be announcing on Discord. And you'll also see on the itch page for the demo, it'll say when it was last updated. It'll change to today. Then you'll know that it's been changed. This demo
where can they get in on the Discord?
Oh, the Discord, if you go to gunnerheatpc.com, either in the page footer or there's a link kind of like partway down the page that's for the Discord. Either of those will get you the invite. The Discord server is where we post most of our announcements and progress, teaser pics. If you are a patron, Patreon subscriber, you not only get the demo, but you get exclusive channel access on the Discord, and we interact there a lot more, and we post teasers, sometimes for things that are very far out, like some people have seen a leopard for Gunner Heat PC because of the patron channels. So if you want to get in on that, those rewards are available for the taking.
We usually do a leak party after a stream.
Yeah, and we'll probably do it after this one as well. We will be slightly distracted by doing this last minute validation on the demo, but we'll probably hop into voice on Discord. I think I got some time, and we'll talk to people, show interesting little teasers that we haven't shown yet anywhere. Typically the way it goes is we show stuff kind of offhand on a whim live, and then when it's a little more polished, we show it in static form on Discord, and then it'll make it into the game later on. Let's see. What else? Oh yeah, I wonder if there's any stuff I want to tease on stream quickly while we're here. We've been going for an hour 40, so
I'd say we should probably wrap it up. So if there's a last minute thing or question that you guys want to ask or answer, hit us up now.
Mm-hmm. Someone asked T64. Yes, of course.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit though.
Yeah,
we'll probably have other things first because we've had some. We scanned stuff to get it quite right. I know there'll be people who will be like, it's not exactly perfectly modeled, but we scan stuff to get it pretty good. There's a certain point where we don't go crazy on the detail because we just want to get all the stuff into the game, and I'm pretty much cranking out models constantly. And if I'm moving on to the next thing and someone's saying, oh, this is slightly wrong shaped headlight, I'm like, well, I'll fix it one day. But the T64, we've had some issues with the scan coming out. Yeah, we did 3 scans and they all came a little bit kind of wonky, and we don't totally trust them yet. So we're going to do some other stuff first and maybe have another go at scanning from another source, maybe, or on a day with better lighting or something like that.
Yeah.
So T64, even though it should be the most prolific vehicle in the Russian army stationed in Germany, we're gonna, well, not the most prolific vehicle, MBT, I suppose. We're probably gonna have to put that behind some other things.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that tank right there? It looked fine.
So this is showing kind of how the process goes for those who are not familiar. we use photogrammetry to make 3D scans, which is you take a lot of pictures of something and then the software kind of figures out what its shape must be from the pictures. It's very cool. It's like magic, but you have to do it carefully, and sometimes it can turn out wrong. Lighting can throw it off. The algorithm isn't perfect. It can't judge like a human can looking at something, so it can get fooled and then give you bad results. However, if the results are good, like this is a point cloud from a T80 scan that one of our community members did for us. We are sometimes able to pull very good results from it. This is the scan model, and so this isn't ready to go into the game. This is it has millions of polygons. It would not be good, and plus it has fixed lighting. Like this texture has baked shadows in it. This is not usable. So what we do then is we make the 3D model for the tank in parallel to this. Like it's almost like tracing. So we know that the size and shapes are correct. And then we're still making the models ourselves from the ground up, but we're given this extra level of assurance that they're realistic. And this is how we do all of our vehicles. We find scans, or we get people to make scans for us, if at all possible, because we don't trust drawings. They're usually not completely right, and photos are hard to get the exact perspectives that you need to get the shape right, especially for things like turret cast shapes. So, long story short, T64 specifically, we've had some trouble getting good scans of, and it doesn't help that most of them are in Russia or countries near Russia, and we are not. The team is in the United States, Canada, and Australia. So we have pretty good access to displays and museums and things with Western vehicles. Not a lot for Eastern. So eventually, we will get this scan taken care of, and we'll have a good T64 model. But for now, we're focusing on things that we do have resources for, and that's why you'll see kind of this this sort of nonsensical pattern for which things are introduced when. It's mostly based on what we can get our hands on right now. Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot the most important part. If you have Cold War tanks near you, and you are able to get access to them without breaking any laws or risking anything, if you are able to take video walking around them, holding the camera at different heights, especially if you have like a selfie stick or something like this, you can send us your footage, and it's possible that it will be usable to make a 3D scan. You don't have to do anything fancy. You don't have to have any software. You just have to provide clear video and photos, and we do the rest.
A little disclaimer. If you film something or send us some source material, it's not necessarily going to work. Just like our sad story with the T64. I think what went wrong with that was maybe a bit of lighting. Like sometimes it's literally just weather can ruin a scan. So if you go to don't necessarily bust your balls to go and get some footage of something, because if you go to all this effort and then it turns out the scan doesn't come out useful, it might make you sad, and we don't want to make people sad, apart from in the game when their guys die. We just want to make sure that nobody's risking anything or spending any money on trying to get stuff scanned for us that might work.
Right.
There's a big maybe attached to that, and the photography has to be nice and stable, and you have to get all the angles of things, and it's very, very easy to accidentally miss parts of it, and then sometimes it can break the whole scan. Like if there's a little break in the continuity, the programs that try to resolve the object in 3D, there's something missing, and because it's not a human and it doesn't process the image and say, oh, I understand what that is. This is a tank. It should be this shape. It has no concept of that. It just looks for little pixel values. And if there's a gap, it will just shear the thing in half, sort of thing.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of really specific things that you need to do to get it right. Like connecting all of your camera paths so that there's always context for things, and maintaining a clear image and not too much glare and not too dark and no blur and all these things. And it takes some practice to get it right. Even if you try to make a scan, you see what went wrong and it informs the next one. So sending people out as volunteers to get this footage for us is not necessarily going to work. It helps and we've got some good results from it, but we're cautious about trying to play it off like this is definitely going to work, and if you send us your recording, we'll add your vehicle. This, it's a maybe, and it helps. So if you have something that you can scan that we need, talk to us on Discord. We'll see whether we have something for it already, whether we need that source, and then we'll work with you to try to get the best results out of it.
Another thing you could do is just try to scan something that's near to you, like if you own a truck or you've got a friend with a truck or something, just scan that, even if it's not a military thing, and just you'll get an idea for what you need to do to make a scan work. There's a lot of software that's, I think Zephyr has a trial. There's a bunch of them have trials, and you can just run the stuff in there and see what comes out the other end, and you'll get an impression of how particular the footage needs to be.
Mm-hmm. I recommend 3DF Zephyr as a free demo. You can use that to practice photogrammetry if this is something you're interested in. There's also other ones. I think Meshroom has a free demo as well.
Meshroom is just free altogether, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a lot more picky about what you feed it. You have to give it really nice photos.
Right. And that's the trick. The source material really does determine how well it turns out. Saigon Shaker, thanks for the follow. Yeah, so anyway, this is something you can do to help us even if you don't have like the budget to give us a Patreon subscription or whatever, you can still send us helpful things. Also, on the Discord, there is a channel called Research Needs. On that channel is a linked Google form and several outstanding questions or research requirements. If you have a direct primary source, not hearsay, not opinion, not another game, but an actual source for one of the questions on that Discord channel, fill out the Google form with whatever documentation is associated and send it in. We receive that, and if it's good info, we will use it and it'll make the game better. Don't send us bad info, Wikipedia pages, things that are poorly sourced, because we can tell the difference, and just because you send something doesn't mean it's going to be used. But if it's actually good source, we will appreciate that and take it into account. Also, don't send anything illegal. Don't send like classified documents, because we don't want you or us in trouble over making a game. That's not smart.
You could also make it very, very difficult for us to make the game.
Yeah.
Seriously. Also, don't send us direct links to your hard drive. Like, we can't access that.
That did happen once. It did happen. Anyhow, yeah, no international incidents, no FBI knocking on my door. That would be appreciated.
Because we do send everything straight to Norinco.
Yes, of course. Yes, obviously.
Guys, that was the quiet part. You don't say that in the stream.
We're just pretending we don't have money. Secretly Epic is doing it. No. Anyway, no, that would be unfortunate. Don't even want to joke about that. Okay. I think that's all we've got for this stream. So keep an eye out in the next few hours once we've verified, because we had some last minute changes. We're going to put out this demo on itch.io on the link on gunnerheatpc.com. If you have the current game installed through the itch launcher and you want to keep it for some reason, the old demo, make a copy of it. Download a copy off the itch page now, because it's going away forever. Other than that, just sit tight. Both patrons and public will get slightly tweaked versions of the same demo with different labels on them, and I hope you guys have fun playing it. All right. Thank you so much for stopping by, and if you are a Patreon supporter, you can expect to see us after the stream in the Discord. That's all I got, so
bye,
guys
everybody.
have fun.
Thanks for the support.
Yay!
Patreon.com/GHPC. All right.
Tell your friends.
Yes.
Tell your mum.
Smash that like button. Hit that subscribe. Wrong
You want
platform.
all your mums playing this game.
Yes, all the moms. All right, I'm going to cut this audio now.